There are moments in life when death knocks quietly and leaves unanswered. Moments when you took a turn seconds before the crash. When a stranger held the door just as your mind was crumbling. Or when you heard a voice, silent but clear, that whispered, "Stop." And you did, and you lived. But how often do we acknowledge the unseen hands that held us up when the world tried to break us down? We live unaware, rushing through days, never realizing how many tragedies we've just barely missed. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is protection. Divine, silent, constant. Number 1. Divine protection often goes unnoticed. There are things we will never see, not because they are hidden, but because they are not meant to be seen. In a world filled with noise, rush, and distraction, we often miss the quiet miracles that unfold around us every day. The ones that don't come with flashing lights or loud announcements. The ones that never make the headlines or the front pages. These are the interventions that come in silence, in subtle shifts of time, in the delays we curse, in the detours we question, and the discomfort we try to shake off. Divine protection doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. How many times have you left the house a few minutes late, frustrated by your own disorganization, only to later hear about something tragic that happened right where you would have been? How many times did you hesitate to answer a call, only to find that silence gave you peace you didn't know you needed? These are not accidents. These are moments curated not by chance, but by presence. An unseen presence, devoted to guiding you through a world where danger often lurks beneath the surface of routine. We live most of our lives unaware of how close we are to calamity. Not because we are careless, but because we have been shielded so well. Like the child who walks freely across a busy street without seeing the parent's arm keeping them back, we move forward daily, not noticing the invisible arms that have kept us from harm. It's not because we are strong. It's not because we're wise. It's because we are loved, watched, guarded. The beauty and the tragedy of divine protection is that it often leaves no trace. It demands no applause. It seeks no credit. It happens in the spaces between disasters, in the seconds that separate heartbreak from survival. And because nothing happened, we move on. We say, "That was close." We might even chuckle nervously and carry on with our day. But how close is too close? How many times have we walked the edge of ruin, never realizing we were inches from losing it all? There is a kind of grace in being spared, especially when you're unaware. The kind of grace that rearranges moments so you pass by after the fall, not during it. So you feel compelled to pause, not realizing that pause saved your life. So you turn left when you always turn right, and in doing so avoid what would have broken you. This kind of grace cannot be earned, it cannot be bought, it is given, freely, endlessly, and without demand. Many would call this fate, others intuition. But deep down, beyond the layers of logic and reason, we know there's something more. Something beyond our understanding that moves the pieces just enough to spare us, to keep us going, to place the right person in our path at the right time. Sometimes they say a word that awakens us, sometimes they simply smile when we need it most. Often, we never see them again, yet they change the trajectory of our lives forever. These are not coincidences. These are messages, wrapped in the flesh of strangers, wrapped in moments that look ordinary, but are anything but. There is a divine patience in how we are protected. No frustration when we fail to notice, no scolding when we forget to be grateful, just presence, just love. Like a parent who watches a sleeping child through the night, not asking for recognition, not seeking reward, just being there, guarding, waiting, stepping in only when absolutely necessary, and always without fanfare. The Stoics believed in fate, in the idea that there's a natural order to things, a guiding force that moves the universe with both precision and mercy. They also believed in awareness, seeing what most people overlook. This is where philosophy meets spirituality, in recognizing that not all forces need to be seen to be real. In acknowledging that just because you didn't feel something doesn't mean it didn't happen. The storm you didn't drive into, the illness you were diagnosed just early enough to beat, the relationship that ended before it could truly damage you. These are protections, silent, sacred, and often ignored. There is something deeply humbling about realizing you have been saved without knowing it. It breaks the illusion of control. It reminds you that you are not walking alone, not now, not ever. It brings you to your knees, not in fear, but in awe. Because in that moment you realize that even in your ignorance you are being watched over. Even in your rebellion you are being kept from the edge. And even in your most broken, disoriented state, someone, something is still holding on to you. We often say, "I don't know how I made it through that." The truth is, you didn't. Not alone. Not without help. Not without intervention. There were battles you never had to fight because they were fought for you. There were tragedies rerouted before you ever felt the tremor. There were angels, unseen, unspoken, who stepped in without ever being asked, without ever being seen. This is the kind of help that asks nothing in return. It simply loves. It simply protects. But we forget. Of course we forget. It's in our nature to focus on what we can see, what we can measure. We chase results, proof, and certainty. And divine protection gives us none of that. No statistics, no records, just life, just continuation, just the opportunity to keep going. And yet, what more sacred proof could there be than that? You are here, despite everything, despite the odds, despite what could have been. That is proof enough. This life is filled with moments that didn't happen, the accident you didn't get into, the sickness you never caught, the call that didn't come. These non-events often carry more weight than the things that did happen. But because we don't see them, we don't count them. We measure blessings by what we gain, but rarely by what we avoid. We say, "Nothing happened today," unaware that nothing is sometimes the greatest gift we could receive. You might never know how many times you've been protected. You might never know the full measure of the mercy that's followed you. But if you sit still long enough, if you look closely at the pattern of your life, you will begin to see it. The way things aligned, the way certain people entered or left just in time, the way pain transformed you rather than destroyed you. The way you are still here, despite everything. That is not random, that is not empty, that is not luck. Divine protection does not prevent hardship, but it often limits the damage. It doesn't erase suffering, but it softens the blow. It doesn't always lift the burden, but it gives you just enough strength to carry it. And sometimes it shields you completely, without asking for thanks. That kind of love is rare. That kind of presence is holy. It's easy to dismiss what we cannot explain, to chalk it up to instinct or timing or even pure luck. But every so often something happens or doesn't happen and you feel it. That brush with the unexplainable. That moment your breath catches and you realize how close you were to something far worse. In that pause, in that breath, in that shiver running down your spine, the truth tries to reach you. You are being protected always. And still, it remains unseen, because that's the nature of divine work. It doesn't want to be worshipped. It wants you to live, to grow, to learn. It wants you to become who you were meant to be. So it steps back. It shields you just enough to give you space, to make your own decisions, to walk your own path. But every now and then, when it sees danger too close, it acts swiftly, without noise, without need for gratitude. There is strength in that silence, a kind of quiet authority. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. And when you begin to understand that, when you begin to sense the pattern behind the pattern, your entire worldview shifts. You stop seeing life as a series of random events, and you begin to see it as a masterpiece. A carefully crafted journey, where even the invisible strokes have meaning. You were never meant to see every battle fought for you. If you did, you might be paralyzed by the weight of it. You were meant to live, not fear. To walk forward, not constantly look over your shoulder. That's the mercy of it. That's the gift. The less you see, the freer you are. And in that freedom, you flourish. But now and then, when you're quiet, when the world slows down and your soul gets still, you might feel it. That soft pressure on your shoulder, that sudden peace in a moment of chaos, that unexplained pause before stepping into harm's way. You'll feel it, not in your body, but in your being. And you'll know you were just protected again. Number 2, stillness reveals the invisible. In the noise of the world, it's easy to miss the things that truly matter. We are surrounded by movement, scrolling, talking, running, chasing. We are conditioned to believe that to be alive is to always be doing something. But in truth, some of life's most sacred revelations arrive in stillness, not in the clamor of achievement or the chaos of reaction, but in the quiet spaces we rarely allow ourselves to enter. Stillness isn't empty. Stillness is where the invisible becomes visible. We often speak of clarity as something we chase, something earned through struggle or acquired through wisdom. But more often than not, clarity is already there, hidden beneath the surface of a restless mind. It doesn't arrive with force. It emerges when we stop forcing. The Stoics understood this. They valued quiet observation, deliberate thought, and unshaken presence. They knew that when the mind is calm, the soul speaks. And when the soul speaks, truth is revealed. Not just about the world, but about the forces within it. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about becoming aware of everything. It's the discipline of returning to the breath when everything outside is trying to pull you away. It's the ability to sit in silence without reaching for a distraction. It's choosing to listen when the ego wants to speak. And in that sacred practice of stillness, the invisible world begins to show itself. Have you ever had a moment where time seemed to pause? Not because the world slowed down, but because you did. A moment where you sensed something, before it happened, before it made sense, before anyone else could see it. That's not coincidence. That's the mind clearing enough to allow something deeper to rise. Intuition is often confused for magic or mystery, but more often it is simply the reward of stillness. A brief window where your perception expands beyond the physical and touches the divine. We spend so much time reacting to texts, to news, to people, to problems. In that constant reaction, we become blind to the patterns unfolding around us. We miss the signs, we overlook the warnings. We forget to feel the air shift, the energy of a room, the subtle pull toward or away from something. But when we practice stillness, we begin to see. We begin to sense what isn't being said. We begin to understand without explanation. In that space, the invisible protectors of your path often make themselves known. Not through spectacle, but through peace. You may feel a sudden certainty in a decision you've been doubting, or a nudge to reach out to someone at just the right time, or a gentle resistance when you try to move in a direction not meant for you. These are not accidents. These are signs, and they only become visible in stillness. We often search for answers in noise. We ask questions, seek validation, scroll for advice. But some answers don't come from the outside world. Some answers have been sitting within you, waiting patiently for your attention. And the moment you give yourself space to breathe, to truly be present, that answer surfaces. It doesn't need to shout. It only needed you to listen. The modern world is allergic to silence. We fill every pause with stimulation. But silence is sacred. Silence is where presence lives. And presence is where the invisible forces, the ones guiding, protecting, and shaping your life, can finally show themselves. Not to scare you, not to impress you, but to comfort you. To remind you that even when you feel most alone, you are not. When we sit in stillness long enough, we begin to remember things we never learned. A kind of ancient knowing awakens. We remember how to trust our gut. We remember how to sense the weight of a decision. We remember how to tell when something feels off, even when logic says otherwise. This remembering is a return to the soul's language, a language the busy world has tried to silence. The Stoics practiced stillness not just to gain wisdom, but to remain unshaken. To live well, they believed, one must become an observer of life, not merely a participant. When you observe from a still place, you're not swept up by every wave. You're not thrown off course by every storm. You start to recognize which waves to ride and which to let pass. And in that clarity, the hidden protections around your life become visible. You start to see how certain people were removed not to hurt you, but to protect you. How certain delays weren't obstacles, but divine timing. How certain heartbreaks were actually redirections. Stillness sharpens your perception. You begin to notice how your body reacts in certain spaces, how your heart tightens when something isn't right, how your energy shifts around certain people. These are not coincidences. These are messages, your inner compass whispering guidance that cannot be found in logic alone. And when you honor that stillness, when you learn to trust those subtle shifts, life begins to align in ways that feel unexplainable. But to reach that place, you must be willing to sit in the discomfort of stillness. At first it feels unnatural, boring even. The mind races, old wounds rise, restlessness takes over. That's the purification process, the burning away of noise. If you stay with it long enough, the chaos quiets. The mind softens, the truth speaks, and the things you couldn't see before, the patterns, the protections, the purpose, they begin to emerge with quiet clarity. Stillness also gives space for your spirit to grieve, to release, and to rebuild. In movement we suppress, in noise we distract, but stillness allows healing. It allows you to sit with your pain, not to suffer, but to understand it. And in that understanding, the invisible work begins. The reshaping of your soul, the realignment of your path, the strengthening of your inner self. All done without applause, all done without words. There is something deeply powerful about being able to sit in stillness and say, I don't need to chase anything right now. Everything I need is already on its way. I only need to be aware enough to see it. That awareness is the gift of stillness. It doesn't just help you recognize danger, it helps you recognize blessings, the right person entering your life, the opportunity you were finally ready for, the lesson disguised as failure. These things do not announce themselves with fanfare. They arrive quietly, and only the still will notice. Stillness is not passive. It is one of the most active forms of strength. It requires restraint, patience, discipline. To remain calm in the middle of chaos, to breathe through fear, to observe your emotions without being ruled by them, that is power. And it's in this power that the invisible world becomes visible. You begin to see life not just as it is, but as it could be, as it's meant to be. You begin to see how every unseen force is not against you, but for you. You may not see the angel that held your hand when you were about to fall. You may not see the force that pulled you out of the relationship that would have broken you. You may not see the divine redirection in the job you didn't get. But in stillness you will feel it. You will know it, not with your eyes, but with your heart. And that knowing will carry you further than any plan, strategy, or analysis ever could. When the world feels loud, overwhelming, and senseless, stillness becomes your sanctuary. It becomes the space where divine protection doesn't need to shout, it simply is. And when you live from that place, you stop fearing the unknown. Because you know now that not everything that protects you needs to be seen, and not everything that matters needs to be explained. Stillness teaches you to trust, not blindly, but deeply. To trust that you are being guided. That even in the darkest hour, there are forces working on your behalf. You don't need to understand them. You only need to honor them with your awareness. And that awareness only arrives when you get quiet enough to hear the silence behind the noise. In a world that moves fast, stillness is rebellion. In a world that demands proof, stillness is faith. And in a world obsessed with visibility, stillness is where the invisible reveals its grace. Number 3, protected for a purpose. You are still here. That truth alone carries weight, more than you may ever realize. Through every near miss, every silent redirection, every moment when something could have gone horribly wrong but didn't, you were protected. But that protection was not arbitrary. It was not random. It wasn't simply luck or chance aligning in your favor. It was deliberate, intentional, purposeful. You were protected for a reason. It's easy to overlook the deeper meaning of our survival, especially when life feels ordinary. When you wake up every day and things seem routine, even boring, it can be hard to feel that your existence carries divine importance. But the very fact that you have breath in your lungs today, after everything you've been through, is not just survival, it's permission, it's assignment, it's a quiet, sacred call to purpose. We've all walked through fire. We've all had moments that could have ended everything. That accident you missed by seconds. That emotional breakdown that didn't completely shatter you. The sickness that could have spread but didn't. The people who tried to tear you down but failed. The parts of you that were dying and yet somehow found a spark to hold on. All of it, every unexplainable escape, every silent rescue, wasn't just to preserve you, it was to prepare you. Protection is rarely just about safety. It's about stewardship. Something is being preserved in you because it is needed. Your life carries something that someone else needs. A word, a presence, a lesson, a strength forged through suffering. The pain you've endured wasn't wasted. It became part of your preparation. And the mercy you've been shown isn't just to make you comfortable. It's to make you ready. There are moments in life where we look back and realize how close we were to losing everything. And somehow we didn't. Somehow things aligned. Somehow what was meant to break us became what built us. Those aren't just moments of grace. They are markers. They are reminders that your journey is not finished, that there is more to do, that something is being kept intact within you so it can be delivered to the world at the right time. The Stoics spoke often of duty. Of waking up each day and stepping into your role, no matter how hard, no matter how uncertain. And when you understand that you've been protected, not for comfort, but for contribution, you begin to carry yourself differently. You begin to see your scars as signals. You stop asking, why me, and begin asking, what now? Because survival without purpose becomes empty, but survival with intention becomes sacred. You weren't protected just to sit in safety. You were protected to walk into storms, carrying wisdom. You were protected to speak when others are silent, to lift when others are falling, to show others what it looks like to endure and then to rise. You don't have to be perfect to do this. You don't even have to be whole. You just have to be willing. Willing to take what you've been given, especially the pain, and allow it to become part of your offering to the world. There are people who will cross your path that only you can reach. People whose wounds mirror yours. People who will look at your life and see hope where they once saw hopelessness. And that is not coincidence. That is why you were protected, because the world needs living proof that healing is real, that grace exists, that it is possible to walk through fire and come out not just alive, but on purpose. You are not protected in vain. Every time you were shielded from something, you were being shaped for something else. That relationship that ended before it destroyed you, it taught you how to discern love from attachment. That opportunity that slipped through your fingers, it rerouted you to something more aligned with who you really are. That breakdown that never quite reached the bottom, it cracked you open just enough for the light to get in. We are so quick to seek explanations when something doesn't go our way, but rarely do we question the favorable mysteries, the days we were spared, the moments that felt like near misses, the strange timing that ended up saving us. We chalk it up to chance, but deep within us there is a knowing that these moments carried meaning, that something was watching, that something was intervening, that something knew you were needed later for something greater. There is someone out there right now waiting for you to say what only you can say, waiting for you to be brave enough to show your healed wounds, waiting for you to live not small and afraid, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are still here for a reason. Your presence alone is a form of medicine. Your story, your pain, your survival, all of it is a key to someone else's locked heart. Purpose is not always loud. It doesn't always arrive with thunder or applause. Sometimes it's as simple as listening, as comforting someone in silence, as creating something honest, as walking into a room with a peace you had to fight like hell to earn. That peace becomes contagious. That calm becomes a map. That steadiness becomes shelter for someone else. And maybe they'll never say it. Maybe they'll never know how to express it, but they'll feel it. And it will matter. When you understand that you were protected for a purpose, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop hiding your gifts behind fear. You realize that your life has already been validated by the fact that it was preserved. The universe, God, whatever name you call that sacred force, it doesn't waste protection on empty potential. If you were spared, it's because something in you is worth delivering, worth expressing, worth offering. There are things you've gone through that didn't make sense at the time. Some may still not make sense. But purpose often unfolds in reverse. Only after the storm clears do you realize the seeds it planted. Only after the delay do you see what it protected you from. And only after the pain softens do you begin to glimpse the wisdom it left behind. That wisdom, that's your offering. That's your currency in this world. You don't need a stage. You don't need a title. You don't need millions of followers. You just need to be honest, to be real, to show up in your fullness. That is where purpose lives. Not in performance, but in presence, in authenticity, in service, in simply living your life like it means something, because it does. You were never meant to hide behind survival. You were meant to rise through it, to walk with a kind of quiet reverence for life, to look at each breath like a gift, not because it's poetic, but because it's true. You've seen how fragile this all is. You've tasted fear, loss, uncertainty, and yet here you are. That alone makes you powerful. That alone makes you qualified. So, when you feel lost, when you feel like your life has no direction, remember this: you were protected for a purpose. Not because you are better than anyone else, but because your story isn't finished. Because there are people who need what only you carry. Because you have something inside you that still has work to do in this world. And the most incredible part? You don't have to force it. Purpose doesn't require a spotlight. It just requires a yes, a willingness to believe that your life, your very existence, is a message. That your steps, your survival, your healing are not just for you. They are for others too. They are for something bigger. They are part of something holy. Let me tell you about a man, quiet, disciplined, skeptical. He left work late one rainy night, following the same route home he'd taken for 12 years. But this time, something felt wrong. His chest grew tight. Not pain, not panic, just resistance. He slowed down, took the next exit, a detour he couldn't explain. Minutes later, the news broke. A semi-truck had jackknifed across the freeway, right where he would have been, right when he would have been there. He sat in his parked car for over an hour, didn't call anyone, didn't cry, just stared at the rain, trying to understand how something so small, a feeling, could save a life. Was it instinct? Was it fate? Or was it the quiet nudge of an angel doing its work? Let me leave you with this. You'll never see them. They don't need that. But they are there. When your heart breaks, when your knees hit the floor, when your soul whispers, "I can't go on." They're there in the person who shows up with the right words. In the delay that saved your life. In the pain that became purpose. So the next time life spares you without explanation, don't ask why me. Ask what now? Because when you're still standing, when you still have breath, that is no accident. That is a calling. You are being guarded, so you can go on guarding others. Thank you.